How's everybody's week been?
Really oh man, it's been about 7 days.
Yeah.
It's been good. My Padres have won 8 games in a row. So
nice.
Yeah, they win today. That's 3 straight series sweeps. So I can't complain.
Well, this week, this whole thing makes my week better because I mean, the folks listening to this don't know, but I'm actually like looking at you both in real time while we record this podcast for the first time in like a year and a half.
Live
Oh
in
my
person.
gosh.
Yeah, I can see into the windows of your soul.
Yeah.
As Craig says, he gets to see me. Like I get to see him roll his eyes.
That's why it's so dark on the side of the room.
Oh, is that just shrouded in? Yeah, makes it feel better. But we are going to try to record this live and in person. Get back into the rhythm of things as we used to in the before times, the pre-COVID days. So, do we have a word for that yet? Do we know what to call that?
Normalcy,
pre-COVID, BC. Again, we're going back to the BC.
It's kind of nice to be sitting here in the same room with you guys.
It is.
Yeah.
This is.
No matter how convenient it is to record Zoom from our homes, there's just something. I've said it all along. There's just something kind of missing when you're not in the same room with each other.
Yep.
Yeah, there is. Like folks don't realize it, but I've got a pile of things over here I can throw at you when you besmirch Tom King now. So, and I couldn't do that before.
They're all Tom King items.
You're gonna wear yourself out before you run out of items to throw.
Matt gestures to the giant table of Star Wars plastic toys behind him. He's like, "Come at me, bro! I'm gonna throw an AT-AT at you."
And Craig throws himself on the pile of Star Wars toys to prevent Matt from throwing them.
Well, welcome back, everybody, and welcome back to you, gentlemen. I'm glad we are sitting at the same table. For those of you who don't know, maybe you haven't been keeping count, this is episode 178 of the Southern Fried Geekery podcast.
I've recorded all but like 4 of those episodes, and I couldn't have told you what number it was.
I think I've only missed 3.
I've probably missed like 5 or 6, honestly. But
I forget. Yeah, anyway, but this is 178. I am, as usual, Caleb Alexander McKenzie.
Matt Troggs.
And I'm Craig Lance.
And we are glad to be here.
Well, that reminded me as I texted Caleb yesterday, and I'm like, hey, has anybody talked about this book? Because if I ask in our group chat, Matt's going to tell me to go listen to our last couple of episodes, and I don't want to hear it.
He's skewed the system.
True.
Well, so everything's good with you guys? You've been reading some comics this week?
Bunch of them, yeah.
I actually read a shit ton of comics.
Yeah, more than I have in a while.
Yep. Sat down, I got caught up. I've been kind of reading, 5 or 6 a week, and this week I sat down. I bet I read 50 comics this week.
Jesus.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot of book, bro.
Once in a while you got to get that stack cleared off so
Yeah.
you can start building it back up.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I've read a few. I've been reading more like prose than anything this week. So, bigger books kind of taken away, but still read some quality stuff. Well, why don't you guys start this little shindig off by telling me a short stack of stuff you read this week?
Well, my short stack, starting with DC Comics, I read the Legends of the Dark Knight. This is a miniseries that is the writer and the pencils is done by the great Derek Robertson.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, nice.
I've heard of him.
Yeah, inks by Richard P. Clark and Diego Rodriguez did the colors. So I like this book. Of course, the art's, Derek Robertson,
right.
So it's very, you can depend on him. It's just going to be really interesting to see how he pulls off an entire story arc. I've read one-offs that he's done, and his writing that I have read so far is held up. So I'm looking forward to see where this goes.
Well, that was going to be my question, is if it was an anthology, like each book its own thing, or if it was going to have an ongoing story.
Now,
With a name like The Legends of the Dark Knight, I thought it might be, each book might be different.
Yeah, going into this, I wasn't sure what to expect, but apparently, it's a mini-series that he is helming. Also, I read from Marvel, Fantastic Four Life Story, number 1, the 60s.
I missed this. I didn't grab it last week.
Oh, wow. So this is writing by one Mr. Mark Russell. Also, the creative team consists of Sean Isaac, this name.
Isaacs.
Yeah, that sounds good enough. Yep. And Nolan Woodard. So this is, to reiterate these life stories, is telling the backstory of comic book characters in what you would call real time, with a very real timeline. Spider-Man life story, probably the most famous of this
I think that's
outing.
the only other one at this point.
Yeah, I don't know of
Yeah.
another one. That one was excellent.
Yeah, that was Chip Zdarsky, and it was
I-
Mark Bagley, wasn't it?
I do not recall the
I forget.
artist, but this one, and I am not necessarily a Fantastic Four fan. I've always wanted to be, but there's not been much material out there that I could really have a lot of interest in. But this was good. I mean, Mark Russell's very dependable. The art's also great, so I recommend this one. Uh, you know, Fantastic Four is just one of those properties that's a lot of people have thrown their hat in the ring on, and there's not much that's been done that I've really dug. But this enthusiastic about this one, and then to round out my short stack from Boom Studios, from Al Ewing and Simone DeMeo, We Only Find Them When They're Dead, number 6. I've been liking this series anyway, but this one is the start of a new arc, and this story has taken a very interesting turn that I did not see coming. So I recommend this. This is not your typical story arc, I guess is what I would say. I don't want to spoil it.
Okay.
Took me. By the way, it was Mark Bagley, so shout out to my brain. I've not soaked it with bourbon so much that I can't remember that.
Well, there's only so many artists.
All right, yeah.
So it's a lottery.
So I'm reading that book as well. It took me a minute to warm up to the art because the art is very. It looks like it's very much out of a really good animated film to me. When I was looking at it, I was like, okay, this looks like an incredibly well done animated film, which it's almost it's hyper rendered. I think maybe is the way I want to look at it.
I'm trying to find the negative in anything you're saying so far.
No, it's not bad. It took me a second to really get into it because it's very much pulled from anime. It's very, like I said, hyper rendered, and so that took me a second to grab it. But the art is gorgeous. Like I said, it very quickly just got me into the mood of what it was.
You're talking about We Only Find Them When They're
yeah,
Dead.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. All right, so you threw me off there when you referenced life story. I thought we were talking about Fantastic.
Oh no. Yeah, like I said, I haven't been able to check that in yet. I was talking about the art on We Only Find Them When They're Dead. Very much pulled out of a very modern, very anime-ish animated film. To me, that's what it looked like. Very hyper rendered, almost like an art germ cover come to life. Which you only see art germ covers. You don't see a lot of art germ doing interiors.
Still trying to find the negative.
I'm not a fan of art germ. Like I realize that's a very unpopular opinion, but I don't care for his stuff. That's just me.
Why is that?
I
explain yourself.
Taste.
Well, bad taste is what Craig would say. I think.
No, I mean art is subjective, so I mean
it's very overly rendered. It's very overly cheesecake. In my opinion, I think that.
I mean, he does pin up art.
Yeah,
for his covers. So.
It's next level pinup stuff, and I just don't tend to dig it.
Yeah, I don't see the negative on that.
Oh no, I love. Like I said, it took me a second to warm up to it. Once I grabbed it, it really latched in and it did what it was supposed to do.
Well, you do you.
I'm gonna keep reading the book.
It's a very unique look. I really appreciate it because it's got a very unique look to it. Yeah, it's impressive. The color scheme in it is, yeah, it's very impressive.
I think it looks like some of the most polished digital art that I've ever seen.
I cannot imagine this is not digital.
Yeah,
art
it's got to be
so clean.
Yeah,
it looks. It's impressive.
And I think that same thing that might be the issue I have with some of like the art germ covers and stuff too. It's incredibly polished. It's almost too clean, digital art, and it just throws me off a little bit. So I don't know.
I mean, again, art's subjective, so people are going to like what they like. Speaking of very, very good artists and new artists, on my short stack I have Luna #4 by Marie Lovett, Studios. Finally understand what the fuck is happening in this book. It took 4 issues before I finally really grasped it. But it is such a beautiful book that it really doesn't matter what the story is. You just enjoy watching the characters traverse through this kind of blood cult, I guess you could call it. Anyways, it's just a really good story, good art. Now, Matt, you said you read Silver Coins #1 and didn't care for it too much, right? Isn't that the one you told me you thought it was kind of boring?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
Did you happen to pick up the second issue?
I did.
Did you like it better?
Yeah, I did like it.
Okay, because I actually put that on my short stack. I enjoyed this a whole lot more than I liked the first one.
Yeah.
This is Image Comics. It's an anthology horror series, kind of in the vein of Twilight Zone, except the stories revolve around this. I'm assuming it's the same silver coin that gets transferred
Yeah.
to different people, and
The MacGuffin.
it is a MacGuffin. It's kind of a neat MacGuffin.
Yeah.
But Kelly Thompson and Michael Walsh did this one, and it was a lot more entertaining than the rock and roll story they did in the first one, where the guy bleeds to death on stage. So if you like Twilight Zone, that sort of thing, pick this up. You may enjoy it. Then the last one I'm going to talk about, and I'm going to kind of cheat because I'm going to combine two on here. Star Wars High Republic and Star Wars High Republic Adventures from Marvel and IDW. It's Kevin Scott, Ario Anadito, Mark Morales, Annalisa Leone, Daniel Jesse Older, Harvey Talabo, Rebecca Nolte. When you talk about two books at once, you have a lot of creators. But both of these stories are really, really solid. And I think I enjoy the IDW one, which is the one intended for kids. I'm actually enjoying that a little bit more than I'm enjoying the Marvel one. But that's not to say the Marvel one's bad. I'm just enjoying the storyline in the other.
How many Star Wars comics have you read that were bad?
Poe Dameron had seriously. I know where you're going.
See his temple throbbing from here.
Poe Dameron had arcs that I didn't like. I really have fallen off of the Bounty Hunter book, other than I'm reading now because of the new crossover event they're doing. I got bored with Doc Aphra, so 3 or 4.
Jesus Christ! Did you hear that, Caleb?
Stripping him of one of his tattoos. That was a test. He failed.
Damn.
Supposed to say none.
I mean, not everything can be 100%. Fucking Disney ruining my childhood. So real quick, I saw somebody on Twitter the other day said if Disney owned Star Wars 20 years ago, the prequels would have been about making Darth Vader the victim instead of the villain. It's like, did you watch the fucking movies?
I was gonna say the prequels are literally about making Darth Vader the victim and not the villain.
Yeah.
That's.
And there's even a quote from George Lucas saying, "I enjoy the concept of a story where the villain is actually the victim trying to redeem his humanity." How to miss the point of an entire trilogy in 20 words or less?
Now, like I said, if that guy, if whoever put that, if they were to look up, like stretch their neck back, look to the sky and squint real hard, they might be able to see the point going over their heads. No. I'm gonna guess that happens a lot in that dude's life, or that I don't know who it may be, a chick, that person's life.
Yeah.
Gonna guess that's a roving theme there. It's really amazing to me, and I was talking to another comics friend of mine. It's sadly amazing to me how people, more and more you find out these people who have dedicated whatever pop culture thing, they've literally made it a foundation of their identity. It's built into their personality, and they don't get any of it. Like it's very like it's they
Dude, that's
X-Men,
all over
X-Men fans. No, for sure, like X-Men fans. Like, oh no, I am an X-Men fan. I'm a diehard. It's who my life is. What SJW bullshit. Like it's just it's baffling to me how that's
or anti-socialist that loves Star Trek.
Yeah, right.
I mean, it's all over every fandom out there, and you can't explain it, but there are people that just flat out miss the points of the stuff that they're into.
It's like
it's pretty. That's all they know.
It takes effort to miss the point. It's like falling out of a boat and not getting wet. Like you got to try real hard.
I mean, you just don't understand things.
Yeah.
Which explains why they are where they are in life.
Speaking of which, so my short stack started off with a little book that I've just been thoroughly enjoying, but it's now marching towards the end. From the House of Ideas, Captain America, a little book. I don't know if you heard of this guy. Dresses like flag, punches things like Nazis. It's being written by the great Ta-Nehisi Coates, being drawn by Leonard Kirk and Matt Milla. So I'm not a long-term, like a lifelong Captain America fan. I'm a lifelong Avengers fan. Captain America's never been, like, I've never gone out of my way to read a solo series or anything. I've loved what Ta-Nehisi Coates has been doing with the story, and the different artists throughout the entire thing have been incredible. like number one, look, Ta-Nehisi Coates is a very intelligent person. Like he's literally a member of Mensa. He's a scholar and gentleman. He's working some of like these major things culturally into this theme. This last issue, they really get into the meat of some of the kind of like this idea that look, the people who are lied to, the people who are duped, it's not necessarily their fault. Which yeah, look, I would disagree with them on some level. But it's almost Captain America being like, there's a phrase in this last issue, like it's going to be real hard to make people realize that Americans are the victims and not the perpetrators here. And I think that's an ongoing theme for a lot of his work, and it really drove the point home. Again, there's a lot of nuanced stuff in here, and look, at the end of the day, this whole team of women that he's created, the Daughters of Liberty. Oh, dude, like I want that book so bad. Because Craig and I often share a brain cell. I too was going to talk about the silver coin, but he said kind of everything that need to be said. It's a camp horror story, and I really dig Michael Walsh's book. The thing I do think is interesting with this, we've seen a lot of miniseries like this that have a similar writer, and I think I talked about this the last time on the show. Like similar writer, let's do different artists each issue. This one's got the same artist with different writers. So it's almost like as an artist, I'm going to give you a theme, I'm going to give you a thesis, if you will, create a story about it, and I'll draw it. So that's been really cool to see. And then last but certainly not least, I don't know if either one of you picked this book up. It's called Eden. It's from Aftershock Comics. It's a one-shot. I know as I'm Vanna Whiting the shit out of this. You guys can't see it, but I'm glistening in the light. So this book, again, written by Cullen Bunn, drawn by Dalibor Talajic, Valentina Brisky, and Marshall Dillon wrap up the creative team. Grabbed it because it was a one shot. I'm really not looking for new. It's Cullen Bunn, so I was going to grab it anyway. But the fact that it was a one and done really, really spoke to me. Magazine size format, almost like the Black Label stuff. The short and dirty of the story. This man, he's a tattoo artist working in a shop. He's recently suffered some losses in his life. Very personal. He's depressed. Hasn't been getting out much. This beautiful woman comes in, wants a tattoo, and he's like, "Yeah, you want to pick something off the wall?" And she's like, "No, I want a tattoo of a butterfly. I want you to freehand it. Don't draw it on me first. I don't want to see it. The minute I see it, I want it to be inked in my skin." So he's like, that sounds kind of risky. You're sure? And she's got like no tattoos. This looks to be her first tattoo. She's like, no, go ahead, go to town. And he does it really cool. They share a connection. And the people in the shop are like, bro, why didn't you get her number? She was obviously digging you. Like, that's a pretty cool chick. And he's just like, yeah, I'm not ready for that yet. I didn't, whatever. Week later, she comes back, wants another tattoo, except the butterfly's gone. It's not there. Where'd it go? Who knows? He's like, I don't even see any like laser marks from removal. Like, what the fuck? And she's like, well, look, hey, like some things last, some things don't, but I want a fox this time. Do it the same way. Does the fox. Comes back a week later, wants another thing, and he's just like freaking out. So, and things are gone, and he's like, look, I'm tired of doing all this work. Like, yeah, you paid me, but if you're just going to get my art like erased off of you, like I'm going to quit wasting my time. She's like, no, that's not it. I can't tell you what's going on, but just have some faith. He follows her, and he follows her
Is this
to.
your book of the week?
No.
Oh, okay.
Am I going long? I'll wrap this up. Sorry. See, this is why I need y'all. Anyway, long story short, beautiful art, Dalibor Talajic. See, you're laughing at me now, and I don't appreciate it.
Dude, I miss being able to poke fun at you in person.
Self-esteem have dropped like 3 notches.
No.
Gorgeous art. I reached out to our buddy Mike Nelson, tattoo artist, told him he needed to read this. So
I killed Matt Troggs.
You did. Matt has turned like 7 shades of red. But yeah, go read Eden. Fun story.
It sounds like an interesting story. Yeah.
I
was disappointed because I thought it was going to be a follow-up to Postal, which takes place in the town of Eden. But it wasn't, so I didn't.
Who wrote Postal? Who was that?
Brian Hill.
Yeah, it was Brian Hill.
Well, Matt Hawkins started, and then Brian
it was Matt Hawkins or Phil Hester. I couldn't remember which one it was.
It was Matt Hawkins started, and then the second volume was Brian Hill. And both were excellent. So
the spinoff of The Tithe from that was really good too.
The Tithe tied back into it. They brought the universes together. Yeah. The FBI agent from The Tithe investigated Eden.
Well, nice.
Indeed. Yeah.
Fun stuff. I mean, we're just under 20 minutes, so I didn't go too long.
Oh, here we go.
So,
love you, Caleb.
Thanks, Dad. Appreciate it. So we got together as we always do.
One of us hurt you.
You can't see. There's a little frowny face over my heart. We got together this week as we always do. Grabbed a book, decided to read it together because look, that's part of the fun of being comics fans, especially when you all read the same thing. You can bounce ideas back up, off of each other, really dig into it, see what the other people thought. Sometimes we all agree on this, maybe we all love it. Sometimes we all hate it. Sometimes there's a mixture, and that's when it gets really fun. So this week, no, oh, I guess I should say spoiler warning, so we don't get yelled at by the masses out there.
I mean, if we're 178 episodes in and they don't know that we're going to spoil
Any
comic
episode
books.
could be their first, Craig.
Okay.
It's
He's
true.
snooty.
It's the Jim Shooter rule.
All right, boomer.
But we don't want to ruin anybody's experience. So, check the show notes. I'll put in time signatures, all that fun stuff, and we'll go from there. But we don't want to ruin your reading experience. So this week, I piped up. I said, hey, I want to read a book. And the book I wanted to read was Shang-Chi, number one. Shang-Chi, true. Apparently, we've all been saying it wrong.
We've been saying it
I
wrong
had
forever
no idea.
until we saw the trailer.
That and a lot of other things.
Yeah. So this one's Shang-Chi versus the Marvel Universe number one, written by Jin Yang, drawn by Doc Ron, Triona Farrell on the covers. It claims to be the first issue of a bold new era. I believe it. Made the claim. I feel it. What did you guys think about this book? Like the 30,000 foot view?
Good. Great.
Liked
Loved
it?
it.
I read 50 books this week.
Yep.
And while I was reading one of these books, I fell asleep.
Humble brag.
And that book was Shang-Chi.
Just didn't feel it?
No, I mean, I was also extraordinarily tired when I got to this book.
Because you read how many books?
About 50.
I'm 50.
50 books.
But Shang-Chi is just really not a character that I'm overly interested in to begin with. And I felt like that was a big part of it. Also,
there was a leprechaun in this comic book, and he'd be his favorite one.
Fuck yes, it would be. If he had to fight the leprechaun, man, that would be a book worth reading. Instead, they brought in Spider-Man.
Who's like a leprechaun?
He's a funny leprechaun, yes. So, I have this theory on comic books. When they bring in a guest in an early issue, it tells me what they think of their own story. Kind of like when you bring a...
Yeah, I don't know.
I have yet to read a series.
It's just a theory.
It is a theory. I have yet to read a book that when they have a guest star, quote unquote, in the first issue, lasts very long. Kind of like when you're watching a first season of a sitcom and they start bringing in guest stars, you know it's tanking.
I mean, have you seen Law and Order?
That's not a sitcom, Caleb. I know you don't understand comedy, but Law and Order.
From what I understand, Caleb laughs his ass off through Law and Order.
Look, I bet he does.
Every time Ice-T
especially
discovery,
SVU, he really likes SVU.
When telling me, John Mulaney was right. That's all I'm saying. But I mean, like,
that's just the theory.
No, for sure. Like,
it doesn't turn me off from the book. I just always feel like it's a way to grab other fans to come in and read that book right off the bat. Oh, hey, did you hear it had Spider-Man in it?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to defend that.
To get their sales up. It is right there on the cover and the name of the book. So
in defense of that, I think that that's justified in doing that to get more attention to this book and this character. Because think about the history of the character and the popularity of the character itself.
Right.
I mean, let's get some extra light on the character to get more people to pick up the first issue. For that reason, I think that's totally justified because, Shang-Chi is just not a mainline Marvel character.
No, and also, I mean,
that's fair.
One of the things on the cover, it says versus the Marvel Universe. So this series really is about the way it's setting up. He's going to have an interaction with a different character every issue. He's going through these kind of street level Marvel. So it's supposed to be the interaction.
Did you just call Spider-Man street level?
To a point, yeah. I think he is. In
what sense is Spider-Man street level?
The same sense as I would say Luke. I mean, when I say street level, I mean like he's not the Hulk. He's not a brawler. When I think of Spider-Man, I think of Manhattan. I think
Spider-Man is absolutely a brawler that holds back to keep from killing people.
Yeah, that's why he uses so much comedy.
Right, that's true. That's right. So when I think of Spider-Man, though, I still think of very much Manhattan. I think of Luke Cage. I think of Iron Fist. I think of Daredevil. And I loop him into the middle of those characters. I think he's
Okay.
very much part of those. He's probably the pinnacle of them, but I very much think of him as a street level person.
Okay.
I always find it weird when fighting Thanos when Spider-Man pops up and is like standing beside Captain Marvel, because I mean this dude's gonna get flicked like a flea.
Except he doesn't.
Right, which doesn't make sense.
Because he's not street level.
In those cases, no, he's not. Yeah, because
I mean, he literally holds back to keep from killing his rogue gallery.
So does every hero, though. Iron Fist does. Luke Cage does. Your phone does.
I mean, if you say so.
So I just don't think of him as that. But that's beside the point, right?
He has the proportionate strength of a spider, dude.
So does the Tick does. Like this is beside the point. Like we're not like we're
just compared. I quit.
Yeah, no, you should.
I'm leaving the show. Everybody, I'm sorry to admit to inform you, this is my last show with Southern Fried Geek.
You can't even say the title right, Greg.
Right, because I'm done.
But the point I was making is that he's fighting the Marvel Universe, so it's like they're gonna bring in all these characters. Just recently in the Taskmaster book, they did the same thing, but from the villain standpoint, they're bringing out all like these villain of the week things. So I don't know that really takes away from the story. That's like an OG trope. Is the villain of the week? And in this case,
say
it's
it
the
takes
hero.
away. I said it's a way to bring in other fandoms to come read this book that you didn't think was going to do well otherwise. And when it's Spider-Man, their number one selling hero throughout time.
I was going to say throughout time because that's not true right now.
Well, yeah, because it's objectively bad right now. But throughout time, Spider-Man's their number one selling hero.
Yeah.
To bring him in is a trick to get. I'm not saying that's bad. It's just it is what it is. So
yeah, but I mean these characters have a long history together. I mean there's their connection through the Heroes for Hire, and
Shang-Chi did train Spider-Man how to fight.
He did, and they talk about that. So this book, I think I did like it, and I think one of the reasons I liked it is I read the precursor to this. There's a little 6-issue miniseries Shang-Chi that came out end of 2020 versus 2021. And this
ended not long ago.
Yeah, I'm going to say this picks up where that left off, where that leaves off, because words. Left off. That one with no S.
Left off.
So essentially, Shang-Chi, his father is this OG criminal empire head. So I don't know really. He leads this gang of people who they're bad guys. They're like, think of the Triad. They just are a long history of villainy and badness. And unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, Shang-Chi's dad has died, and Shang-Chi becomes the successor to the whole thing, and which puts him in a real rock and a hard spot because now he's leading this borderline clandestine mystical organization of ninjas who have been used in the past at least 50 60 years
hand without the
mysticism. It's and that's, you always run into that when you talk about Marvel ninjas. It's always going back to the hand.
But it's similar. It's just they don't have the mysticism. At least we haven't seen any mystical powers.
Right. They're just being used to like run weapons and guns and all
organized
sorts of
crime ninjas.
But it puts him in a rock and a hard spot because he can't dissolve it. He doesn't want to dissolve it.
He's scared of the power vacuum, I think.
Right. And then, but this reputation is, people are looking into this, and he's trying to right the situation. I think there's some real world caveats to this. It's, you think about gang culture. The Bloods and the Crips started off as community organizations to boost their own communities, became filled with drugs and crime and violence and all that stuff. And now you in certain parts you see the Bloods and the Crips reverting to that. They're now like doing like service projects. Essentially, what he's trying to do, he's trying to right the ship and make this beneficial. The problem is not everybody's on board with that. Not everybody wants that. And he meets his little sister, who is kind of a badass in her own right. She reminds me a lot of Damian Wayne in a way. Very snarky.
I can see that.
Wants to kill everybody. Carries around a bunch of daggers.
Raised by ninjas.
Yeah, and is constantly pushing back against authority, especially
I can see
his own authority.
She was my favorite part of the book.
She was fun. She was fun. And so they're trying to figure out how to to go about rooting out the bad portions of this organization, how to really carve it out and and make it better. Uh, and again, like I said, not everybody's on board with this. There are members of this organization that are going to stay evil till the end. Um, as they are tracking things down, like you said earlier, they cross paths with friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, who he's hunting down something that may be connected. They don't know, and so they decide to team up for a little bit. Hey, look, I enjoy a good Marvel team up. Let's see where this goes. They jump in there, and kind of all roads led to Rome in this book. They realize that both paths they've been tracking down. One was a weapons path, one was a drug path. They all kind of funnel down to the same spot. But Shang-Chi is trying to keep the truth away from Pete the entire time. He's like, I don't want Pete to know that I'm now possibly a criminal mastermind, even though I don't want to be. But if he thinks I'm the head of this organization, he's not going to get it. So he's trying to keep the truth away from Pete, and he's not successful for no other reason than the fact that you're good. Not successful for no other reason than the fact that his little sister can't keep her trap shut, and she just blasts it all out. And so Spider-Man has to figure, how to broach this situation. Does he trust Shang-Chi? Does he understand what's happening? And that's really what a lot of this story roots down to. At the end of the day, Shang-Chi doesn't call the authorities. He calls in his legion of ninjas in their hovercraft. They come pick up all the weapons. They take them away. Part of this, where it kind of took a left turn, I didn't expect it, but I really enjoyed it. It becomes a borderline werewolf story for a little bit. One of the drugs that they're tracking down is this root, and there's this old man. He's an old medicine practitioner who has taken this root, and essentially, when it comes into contact with people, it turns them into a type of Chinese Yeti. Which there's a big fight. Things don't necessarily go the way you think they would, and they have to. Shang-Chi has to stop Spider-Man, which is tough, right? Like because freaking. Did you know Spider-Man has the proportional strength of a spider? I just learned this. I just found this out. It's new news.
So does Tick.
Well, he has a proportional strength of a tick.
Yeah,
not a spider. Ticks aren't spiders, Craig.
Have you ever seen a tick carry like 1,000 times its own weight?
No, but I have seen a tick carry Lyme disease.
Yeah, many times. They're always like carrying watermelons.
They're
and
nigh
stuff
invulnerable.
Yeah,
and fight the chairman.
So they have to fight this dude. They end up saving the day, but this old man is one of the members that is, like I said, is not having this change. He doesn't appreciate the flip flop of what this criminal organization is doing. So he runs out and essentially rats Shang-Chi out to somebody. And in the next issue, as the back promises, we are apparently going to get a run-in with Captain America.
Yeah, so another Marvel superhero coming in.
Yep. You were going to say street level. You tried to.
I was not going to say street level. You're the one calling all of the Marvel heroes street level.
I don't call all the Marvel heroes street level, just the ones that are street level.
And the ones that aren't.
And the ones that aren't.
Sorry, couldn't help it.
Jessica Jones is street level. She holds back.
Jessica Jones is street level.
I really like the artwork in this book.
Yeah.
I really like the artwork and the layouts.
Yeah, the art was really good.
Yeah, the action scenes were done really well. Yeah, the points of perspective are really cool.
Honestly, most of my complaints just come from... It's not even a complaint. It's just the fact that it's a character I'm not...
Craig read it while he was tired.
I probably need to reread it.
Craig is probably salty because Spider-Man is being written better in this book than he's written better in the Spider-Man
book. I wouldn't know
because
I haven't read a Spider-Man book in like 80 issues
not great.
at this point.
I had to go back and see where I knew Dyke Ruin from. I know this team was on the last Shang-Chi book. Other than that, I'm not familiar with him. But
is it the same writer too?
Yeah, yeah, it's the same creative team. As far as I know, I wikied it, but that could also be false. But yeah, no, I think it was the same team. And
Google lies.
His action sequences reminded. There was one sequence reminded me a little bit of what you would see from Daniel Warren Johnson, which I'm a huge Daniel Warren Johnson fan. But he does that. There's one sequence where the fist is coming through and he's doing that like sketchy thing, just like make it look blurry.
Oh, the blur.
Yeah. And I see that more and more. It's becoming more of a thing, and of course it's adapted from manga. It's kind of where that stems out of. But those artists are doing it more and more. I really like the character designs in this. Shang-Chi's outfit is kind of dope. The way that he draws the Yetis or not
The
really
Wild Man.
right. Yeah, that's fine. And he does something that I love that they have quit doing as much. You can see so much of the city in the background of his panels, and and I don't know when they stopped doing that as much. But if you go through comics right now, you don't. At least I don't notice it as much. Maybe that's so, but it's and because it's a lot of work. Like you got to put all these buildings, it's a ton of work. Chichetto did an amazing job of it in Daredevil, putting in the background all the stuff. But
Everything he's done.
yeah, Chichetto can do no wrong. Just Jesus. But I really appreciate that he put those background
Also,
the
another book
cityscapes.
that's selling because they put a street level hero in to replace Daredevil.
Wait, what?
Elektra.
Failing.
I'm joking.
Okay, you better.
So confused.
It's the best Marvel book out right now.
Throw my Yeti at you.
Wait, is it a Chinese Yeti or is But no, so I think this is cool. I definitely want to see where it goes through. I like the Hero of the Week stuff, especially when it's on because I think this is only going to be a 6-issue miniseries. I think that's all they were planning on doing. Though that's what the last one was.
I would imagine we can guess who's going to be in it based on the cover.
Let's see.
I want to see him beat Captain Marvel. That'll be a good one.
Thor's laid out. Well,
also a good one.
Yeah, Captain America's not on this cover. Captain Marvel's on it, but I think Captain America's who's coming next. So, it'll be fun. I like the old kung fu stories. Where did you guys first read a Shang-Chi story? Do you guys remember?
Oh, I don't.
No,
I don't remember.
I don't remember the story. I know I had the Marvel premiere book he was in, his first appearance, but I read it after I had read
right.
other stories. So to say which one I read first, I don't remember. I don't dislike him as a character or anything like that. I think it's a solid character. It's just not a character I'm real invested in. So it's just, and part of that's just lack of them bringing him into the continuity more often. So
yeah. Well, they use Iron Fist so much more heavily.
I will probably stick with this book just so that I get kind of a feel, especially with the movie coming out.
Mm-hmm.
I imagine that some of the plot elements of this book will be in the movie. Would be my guess.
Could be.
The tie-in to the underground organization may very well be his motivation in the movie. I have no idea, but just speculating.
Well, in the past, like you mentioned a while ago, he's fought the Hand, he's fought the Magia. There's a lot of that, and that's kind of the is it Maggie or Magia?
No, it just cracks me up because they just changed the F to G. And
yeah, right.
We don't have the Mafia.
We have the Magia. So very well could, and I think that would make sense for them to do. For me, it was Marvel Comics Presents. So that's the first time. I'm sure it was a reprinting, but that's the first time I remember reading a Shang-Chi story. And again, with Shang-Chi stories, where it differs from Iron Fist stories, it really is kind of an old school kung fu story versus there's not a lot of flashy superpowers. He's not like using his chi to like blow holes through the wall. I mean, he can, but
apparently he flies now.
I would love to see Warren Ellis write a Shang-Chi book just for those breakdowns.
I would like to see that as well. I mean, it's just a lack of knowledge of the character, really. Like, if you asked me if he had superpowers, I don't know that I could even answer that. I know he's a badass fighter, but I don't know that I can answer if he's really got powers. Because, and this is on me, it's a lack of my knowledge of this character. That's
from what I understand, he can channel his chi like a superpower. Not in the same way Iron Fist does, but from what I gather, because again, like I said, I don't have tomes and tomes of Shang-Chi books at home either. I just I appreciate when he pops up, and mostly when you see him pop up, it's in other stories. Like the last place I remember seeing him was in the Domino Run. The more recent one.
He was great in that. He was great when he's been great when he makes appearances in other people's books.
It's when they don't trust their story.
Like I said, when he showed up, I think it was Spider Island to help train Spider-Man to fight. That was pretty impressive because Spider-Man has never really been taught to fight. No. He just uses proportionate strength of a spider
and thwips. Lots of thwips.
To beat up street level villains.
He'll whip your ass.
just to beat up street level villains. That was good. That him and Domino was great. I think everybody was shipping Domino and Shang-Chi for a bit, including Gail Simone, who wrote that.
Yeah. Well, there's this one panel I remember, and Domino's just like looking at his abs. It's great. Did you read Spider Island?
I did. I love
Did you?
Spider Island.
Yeah, I was gonna say I didn't have a chance to read
It was
that.
one of the last really good Spider-Man stories I've read.
Nice. Very cool. Well, yeah. So I'm on this. I'm gonna keep reading it. Gonna check it out. Like you said, there is a movie coming out. We're gonna see how that goes. I've got high hopes. I want it to be great.
And I'm going to reread this issue when I'm more awake, apparently. I mean, I'm sure that has something to do with how I feel about it. Is that I fell asleep while reading it. That generally doesn't happen. But it was one of those you're reading and you're going, I really just need a nap. I can get through. I've only got a few pages left. Next thing you know, you're just out snoring and the book's in your lap.
Mad at the book. Leave me in my nap.
Yeah, right?
Craig
Kick
reached
the book across the floor when I wake up.
Craig's reached the point where my grandpa used to open the paper and immediately go down, hiding behind the newspaper.
I fall asleep reading. I fall asleep playing a video game. I'll wake up and the game.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
it's like narcolepsy.
No, it's not like that. It's just I get like really tired, and it's like, okay, well, I can finish this, game or whatever.
Yeah. Well, but your schedule's different too. You get up
I get up really early. Yeah, and then I usually take an afternoon nap, and when comics or video games interrupt that, my body says, "Screw you! It's time for your afternoon nap." I'm not sure I could work in an office ever again. They kind of frown on you taking afternoon naps at your desk.
Well, I understand it, yeah.
Unless you work for one of these new businesses that are on the East Coast that have like arcades and stuff. West Coast, yeah. Arcades and nap time and
a lot of that comes from Japan. They allow the same.
Everyone sits on the bouncy balls. I want one of those jobs.
A lot of that in Europe altogether. It's a big thing in Italy.
3-4 hour lunches are acceptable.
3 and 4 martinis at lunch also acceptable, and I support
and at least 10 cigarettes.
Yes, but so like I said, I'm sticking on this book. What about you guys?
Yep.
Yeah, I'm going to stick on it. Like I said, if nothing else, to get a deeper understanding of the characters we head into the movie.
I want to pull the. I have to pull out my Marvel Omniboo, the Ohatmu Omniboo, to see what the Ohatmu Omniboo says about Shang-Chi. It's the official history of the Marvel Universe thing.
I hate that word so much.
Omniboo?
I despise it.
Matt's twitching again.
I'm going to get it tattooed down my forearm. All right, well, one of you guys, Craig, I know you said you read 50 comics. Pick one out and tell us about it, bro.
Yeah, so I read a book called Phantom of the Scan. Have either of you guys read this?
Never heard of it.
Okay, so it's by Aftershock Comics. There's 2 issues out. I'm going to talk about the first issue. It's written by Colin Bunn. Mark Torres did all the art on it. Dave Sharp did the letters. So this book opens 20 years ago and shows a car wreck, a drowning victim, a comet flying over. And then it switches to now. And the lead character, Matthew, startles awake from a dream where he's having a nightmare about that fatal night 20 years ago. And off panel, there's a voice that asks him if he's having nightmares again. And the voice tells Matthew he can take control of his dreams and that the voice can help him.
Mm-hmm.
And Matthew responds with, "So says the little dead boy." And it pans over to the voice, and it's a ghost of a child. And we find out later that it's the boy that drowned in his dream that he had. And so Ghost Boy, or Dead Boy as I like to call him, informs Matthew that another one of quote-unquote them is going to die this night. And the scene switches to a man taking drugs, trying to quiet all the voices in his head, and it ends with this man's head exploding, which is right up Matt's alley for violence, I would think. So the next day at Matthew's psychiatrist's office, when the doctor offers to up Matthew's dosage of meds, Dead Boy tells Matthew the doctor is hiding something and asks Matthew if he wants help getting the information from the doctor. Matthew tells Dead Boy to do it. And Dead Boy goes over and pulls the information directly from the doctor's brain.
Mhm.
And he gets a list of other patients that are also psychics that develop their powers on the same night Matthew did,
Nice.
the night of the comet. So Matthew tells Dead Boy to locate the rest of them. He wants to meet up with them so they can figure out what's going on, why they're dying, what's happening. And so Dead Boy gives him the information. Matthew reaches out with his brain. They meet up at a diner. And while they're discussing their commonalities and what's going on, one of their heads explodes. And that's pretty much where it ends, except there's a little ominous message by Dead Boy to end it. As I said, there's another issue that's already out. We become aware of a sinister group behind the scenes and a very Sylar-like character if you watched Heroes, which this book kind of has the feel of Heroes, except told from a horror standpoint by one of the, what I consider masters of horror in comic books right now, Colin Bunn.
Yeah. Oh,
So Mark Torres's art in this book, I cannot understate how good this art is. It's all very kind of sketchy art, except when it needs to be hard lines, it's hard lines. The color palette is all this kind of blue and green dull tones, except he changes it when he needs to focus on something. Really fantastically done all the way around. The book's claustrophobic, it's dark, it's depressing, and it's beautiful.
So, isn't it back matter or anything in this book? Does he talk about David Cronenberg's Scanners movie?
No, he did not.
I mean, this sounds like a comic book version of the Scanners story.
Well, name Scan's in it. So
the Scan's in it, yeah.
Yeah, they get their powers from a comet. Does that happen in the Scanners movie?
It's not explained how they get their powers.
So this is all
interesting.
The night of the comet. All of the people that are now psychics or have some sort of ability, they got their powers in some sort of tragic event. Like Matthew's story is that his parents were in the car wreck when the comet flew over. They died. He lived. He woke up with powers. The little boy, who's now a ghost, drowned and died, but he's still alive because he got his powers that night. The other ones, they all have their story about what happened. But I could see how you could say that.
Yeah, I mean, the famous head explosion scene in Scanners.
Yeah, except there's really something coming out of their head more so than a explosion. No, it's a creature crawling out of their head.
Aliens.
I wasn't. Yeah, I was going to kind of leave that as a surprise, but there is an alien that comes out of their head when they. So in this diner, the last page is this like alien creature, full shot coming towards the quote unquote camera. So,
well, but I mean, Cullen Bunn is a huge fan of horror. So, I mean, we know he's done Cronenbergian type stuff before. When he did his, I don't know if he's still doing it, but he used to do his own podcast called Missouri Swagger, and he would talk about Cronenberg a lot on that and stuff. So I know he's a fan of that. So it's definitely playing a part.
And the name of it leads you to believe.
Yeah, it's
and I think the first one is victim. The first title, I think, maybe even Victim of the Scan.
Yeah.
So he may be tying each one because, like I said, the second one gives more of a Heroes television vibe, except of course it's darker. But yeah, there's a whole lot going on in this book. I'm really interested to see where it goes, and the art is just super fantastic. A lesser artist would have not brought the book the hubris or the depth that it needed, I guess, as well.
The lesser artist would have brought in like Spider-Man.
Yeah. A lesser artist would have just it wouldn't have been as good in a lesser artist's hands.
No, for sure.
I don't even know that I've seen Mark Torres's work before.
I would have to look him up.
I haven't had a chance to look it up.
The name doesn't pop up on my brain.
I'm sold. I will be looking him up and seeing if I can find any other work he's done.
Yeah. When you text me about this yesterday, I went and Googled some of it. No, it's stunning work. His lines,
Like I said, when it needs to be sketchy, it's sketchy. When it needs to be hard, firm lines, it's
Yeah,
hard, firm lines. And
it's kind of the opposite of what I'm used to seeing. Usually, you have somebody with a clean, crisp line, and then when action happens, they kind of blur it up a little bit. His does the exact opposite. Like he gets rigid, like to make a point, and that was
yeah,
very interesting to me.
very emotive.
Yeah.
The facial expressions that you see on the characters throughout the book, it's sometimes they miss that, and that's an easy thing to do. You're just drawing the character,
Hmm.
and you kind of miss the emotion that they need to be portraying in that scene. But nowhere in this book does that happen.
I want to go back. I mean, it's completely a nerd thing, but part of me wants to at some point go back and like note all of the dream sequences that Cullen Bunn writes because he puts dream sequences into a lot of his work and they always mean something. And typically, a dream sequence is something that annoys me in anything, whether it's a novel, whether it's a film, whether it's a comic or whatever. He always makes his dream sequences have weight, and he always uses them in some sense to play into the plot really well. He does dream sequences really well, and
So in
there's
this
a
book,
science behind that.
it's just a way to tie what happened to the night of the comet.
Right.
And this guy's having nightmares that ultimately we find out in the second issue that a lot of his dreams are the stories of the other people he happens to meet in the diner
Yeah.
that night. So it's as I said, he's now a psychic. He has these abilities to see the past. He's talking to a ghost. He's that no one else can see. Even the
Hmm.
other psychics can't see that ghost. They think he's talking to himself. So we don't know what their powers are yet. One's power was apparently to have his head explode and an alien come out of it.
Matt, where does cranial eruption rank on the hierarchy of violence?
Cranial eruption. I mean, that one's going to be ranked pretty low because
It's not
yeah,
actual violence.
it is violence, but it's not hand to hand violence.
In this case, it's like alien
Yeah,
violence. Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, that's just not what the hierarchy's about.
It's true.
So
That's
where
true.
do you put the alien bursting from the chest in Aliens?
Well, I mean, that's so specific; it doesn't really make the list.
Gotcha. Because this is similar to that. So
Yeah,
yeah, I can see that.
Nice.
but it's a living document, so I mean, that can change.
Yeah,
It-
I get
it
that.
is.
It changes with time.
It's just,
Headbutting's always up there towards the top.
Oh, yeah, of course.
they'll find it in 30 years and we'll discuss it and see how it's changed.
Yeah. The only thing Matt's going to remember in his old, feeble age, dementia age, is his hierarchy of violence. That will be
It's going to be stapled to a wall.
That's right. He'll be walking around with his pen, writing it on the wall. And they'll be, what are you doing, Mr. Trogdon? Got to remember the hierarchy.
Well, speaking
And
of
so do you.
speaking of violence, Matt, did you read anything violent this week?
I did. I read something great this week. This something I went into with no foreknowledge of whatsoever. I purchased this based on the material and just by opening the book and flipping through it, the presentation. I thought, okay, I'm going to give this a try. This is Jay Gonzo's La Mano del Destino. On the cover reads Lucha Libre Action,
Mm-hmm.
which it very much is. The quickly the synopsis on the back reads La Mano del Destino tells the tale of a once champion luchador who, after being betrayed by his friends and unmasked in the ring, agrees to a Faustian bargain with a mysterious promoter. He gains a new power and the identity of La Mano del Destino in order to exact revenge upon his betrayers. It's set in a swanky jet age of 1960s Mexico, where lucha libre is intrinsically woven into all aspects of society. The story winds its way through the machinations and motivations of those who inhabit this unique world. I loved this book. I read it all the way through in one sitting. It and there is a with this is a collection that of the 5 issue series that he is it 5 or 6 issue series that he had self-published,
Mhm.
and he kickstarted the trade paperback. It got picked up by Image Comics, specifically Top Cow, and it's this collection. He has a lot of back matter in it that I really appreciated reading. He goes into the story setting, the history of Lucha Libre itself, the reason he chose to set the story in the 1960s, the artwork is reminiscent of the 1960s Marvel style, specifically Jack Kirby, very much specifically Jack Kirby. It's a lot of fun to look at. It's very dynamic. He uses that 1960s comic book color palette and graphic design. When this was originally published, in reading the back matter, I learned that he wanted it to really have that feel, so he published it on uncoated paper, which I would really like to see.
Wow.
I would really like to see what that looks like. The single issues of these are very, very hard to find. As far as I can tell, he didn't get any distribution. He was selling these himself at like conventions. Is kind of the way that's the way it reads.
That's the way I understood it. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is the first time it's been available to the mass public, and I can't wait to see what this guy does next. I've always had a keen interest in the Lucha Libre subject matter. It's always been something very interesting to me, and it's always been something that I've wanted to read more about because I knew there was something special about it. It just wasn't guys wrestling in masks. And that's why I was super appreciated that he goes into the history of it in the back matter. Because being the wrestling fan, specifically of, when he talks about the golden age of Lucha Libre being the 60s, I really like reading the history of wrestling, pro wrestling back in the 60s, 70s, and then up through the 80s. But what you'd heard stories of these Lucha Libre wrestlers is, they don't take their masks off.
Yeah.
They don't take their masks off in the locker room. I mean, there's story of Mil Mascaras showering with his mask on. I mean, and he goes into, that being such an integral part of the culture. They don't put their masks on to hide their identity. They put their masks on to take on a new identity. And that's why the design of the mask is so important. He goes into what would happen if a wrestler were to lose his mask in the ring, what exactly that means, and how they have to, if they want to keep wrestling.
Do they kill him?
What they have to do is his head explodes unless Spider-Man shows up. So, his artwork is fucking dynamite.
Yeah.
It is so good.
Yeah.
I love just the way the book looks. It makes it just a real joy to read. And there's a lot of panels where there is no dialogue. He lets the action tell the story. He's very confident in letting it do that. That I really appreciated. This is a story that was way overdue. I mean, this is a story that should have been done many times by now, just because of the richness of the material itself. I don't understand why we don't have more good wrestling comic books. It's just ripe for comic book storytelling, and there's not much out there that's not, where wrestling is a secondary subject matter of the story and not the primary.
Right.
It's really
you think
weird.
It's because it maybe focuses on a specific group of people that would buy the comic?
I have no explanation for why. I mean, I can't make any sense of why that is. And I've scoured and looked for wrestling comic books, and they're hard to find. Well, unless it's just a secondary subject matter in a story.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of crossover, right, between comic fans and wrestling fans. I mean, there's not hardly a Wednesday where we're up here talking that wrestling doesn't come up at least once in the day.
Specifically superhero fans. I mean, and that's essentially what a lot of the, I know, like you said a while ago, there's not a one-to-one comparison, but there is a lot of crossover between superhero culture and the stories that in wrestling to that. I mean, the colors, the
villains,
capes, the villain,
heels and baby faces, villains and good guys. Yeah. There is a lot of, and they're over the top, flamboyant, just, utterly ridiculous. So
I'm interested to find out what happens when they lose their mask. I'm gonna have to borrow the book to find out.
It's
or
really
buy the book to find
it's
out.
really interesting. It's the richness of this Lucha Libre heritage thing has always been interesting. But what he points out, his main motivation for driving him to create this was, and this is something it didn't occur to me until he spells it out, the misrepresentation of Lucha Libre in American culture.
You mean movies like Nacho Libre? Probably did it.
So he talks about, if you see a Lucha Libre portrayed in a comic book or a movie, they're portrayed as the minions or muscle thugs.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
with wearing the Lucha Libre mask, and I thought about it. I'm like, yeah, he's right. In fact, I just read a series last year that the main villain, his number one thug wore a Lucha Libre mask.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, yeah, I started really thinking about it. I'm like, yeah, he really is right.
Yeah.
So this was cool because it was a whole new take on those kind of characters, and somebody that's deeply steeped in it actually has a very good understanding of it.
Yeah.
Writing the story, and the story's a lot of fun. I just can't put this book over enough, man.
Okay.
And I've been recommending it.
Look at him using a wrestling term too.
Over. See what I did there?
I did see that. I picked it up.
Yeah.
Well, I'll let you know if I ever find out if he's selling any of the pages or anything, because I know he does. So I know I've known Gonzo for a couple years now, and like a lot of the people I know him through the 11 O'Clock Comics podcast. That's how I met him. And it was actually, shitty timing, but I had commissioned I was getting a commission done by him, supposed to, that I was going to pick up at Heroes Con when I went in 2020. But of course, COVID happened and I didn't get that. But so I don't own a piece of his artwork. I will at some point, just because he is great. And like I said, he is absolutely he's old school. He looks at the work of Kirby and boils it down to kind of its bare essence for the movements and the theatrics of it all. Does a really good job. And like I said, I haven't read Mano del Destino yet. It's on my list of things. But I remember when he finally, when he found out he was getting picked up by Image, was just over the moon. I mean, and then I'll reach out. There's a slim chance we can get him on the show.
Oh man,
so you can talk to him about it.
I'd love to know what he plans to do next.
Yeah,
and I'd really do. So this is the only thing I'd ever seen of his. Is this what his artwork looks like on the regular? Because he makes it a point to say that he wanted it to look like 1960s Marvel work, and then he names Kirby specifically, and it's very much Kirby-esque. But is this the way he normally draws everything, or did he do this specifically for this story?
He's a pretty adept artist. I've seen him do a couple of different styles. From what I know of him, which is mostly as far as actual action pages, sequential pages, it's been from that book. So I don't know if he does something else, but like I said, I've seen a bunch of commissions that he's done.
Yeah, it's very Kirby.
And that dude, his color palette on that is
so
sick too.
It's so cool.
His use of Zipatone as well. But yeah, so
what?
Zipatone, the little dots. He does that really well. So, but yeah, I'll pull some shots of some other stuff that I know he's posted and send them your way. Just because the dude's good, so I'm pissed I don't have my commission. He was supposed to do the Authority for me.
Wow!
Yeah, he was going to do a whole group scene for I don't think he would mind me saying it was about $350, which is not bad for that many people at all. But I don't have it. I'm upset about it. So it will happen eventually. I don't know now that he's all Image Comics. Jay Gonzo, he might be above me and beyond me.
I just want him to be the Lucha Libre guy. I want all these stories.
Yeah, he's a cool dude and wears fancy boots. So
where did you get that book at? Did you order?
I got it here.
Did you?
Yeah. So
apparently they ordered some more.
Yeah. They should. Like I said, I expected this to be a hot book, and I'm glad to see. Like when I saw you with it, I was like, oh shit, that's awesome. Because
when I say I got it here, I got it at Kapow Comics in Sherwood.
Right.
Yeah.
So I read a little book this week. I was going to tell you guys about.
Please tell me you're not reading all of that book to us.
No.
Okay.
You read the phone book?
I'm not gonna. I'm not.
He picked up a 3-inch wide, thick book.
It's a graphic novel. It's published by Graphics.
It's not 3 inches.
It's not an omnibus.
Well, Craig, if you think this is 3 inches, we need to have a conversation.
I'm a dude, and we all know that's 3 inches.
It's about an inch and a quarter. It's a bigger book, but it reads fast. So the book is called Hey Kiddo. It's written by Jarrett Gay Krakoska, I think is how you pronounce it. In a nutshell, the title says it all. It's how he lost his mother, found his father, and dealt with family addiction. Essentially, it's a graphic memoir of Jarrett's life. Jarrett was he was born in America. He grew up here. His mother was a teenage. I use the phrase junkie just because that's the lingo, and I realize that's probably not the phrase we're supposed to use now. She's a teenage drug addict when she has him. Luckily, she quits doing heroin while she's pregnant, so he ends up not coming out addicted to heroin. But he's raised by his grandparents and lives with his aunts who are not too far away from age with him. as he goes to school, he starts realizing how he's a little bit different from the other kids. He doesn't have his mom doesn't really know where she's at. She's not in the picture. His dad is, he doesn't know who it is at all. And he starts missing all these little family things. Eventually, he finds out that his mom was in jail, and then she's back and forth to a halfway house. He meets her. They connect, but they don't have the type of connection she wants to have. He's a very young man. These are very, very formative years for him. He dives into art like a lot of kids. All kids start out drawing, but eventually we all stop at some point. He just doesn't stop. Falls in love with it, and starts really getting into to drawing comics like a lot of us do. Or not us, because that's not me, but like a lot of kids do. He turns to comics, teach him how to draw, starts taking a class at the local, something equivalent to the YMCA, and starts, kind of really developing a feel for what he wants to do. And obviously, he's successful because I'm sitting here holding the man's book. And this book, National Book Award finalist. So he does really good work. As he goes through, I mean, there's a, he goes through a couple of different, you know, really reflections on his life. It's a very, very much a slice of life book, very much a heartfelt, like, this is what I went through. This is where I'm at. Not a like a woe is me pity book, but like, hey, dude, here's my childhood, and here's it laid out bare for all to see. Which I really appreciated, because it's a very personal, and I can imagine it wasn't easy dealing with the psychology of, as an adult, looking back and seeing your experiences as a child, and processing those, understanding who your mom was, but also being angry at your mom, but as an adult developing a relationship with her that he doesn't hate his mother. They're not best friends. They don't have a classic mother-son relationship, but they love each other. They get something out of one another. At the end of the book, he receives a letter right before it's like 16th birthday. It's from the man who's his dad, and finally had tracked his son down. Again, doesn't have the father-son relationship, but develops a friendship with the man who's his father, meets his family, and all of this, as told through the story, is these kind of feelings, and this identity is developing along with his ability to draw. His as he goes through school, they're like, no, you need to learn realism first, and then once you learn the mechanics of realism, you can really break down and see how these things work. And it's a metaphor. It's a metaphor for his life. He has to look at the stark reality of his life, and then he can start seeing how those things are representative of the psychology of life, and so to speak, and the things that you have to learn from it. At the end of it, it's not really necessarily meant to be a moralistic tale. As much as it's just, hey, like, here's what I went through, and maybe somebody else did. Like, he's not trying to, I did this and yada yada, which I think breaks it from there. As I was reading this, I think there were some parallels to a recent kind of pop culture thing that happened. There was a book that came out a few years ago that got turned into a film. It's called Hillbilly Elegy. I don't know if you've heard about this. Glenn Close played in the film. She played the grandmother. It's similar to this in tone, as far as young man, kind of, mom's an addict, but whereas that story, I think, ended up trying to be. I did not enjoy that story nearly as much as I enjoyed this one. I think it tries to be moralizing. I think at some point there's some subtext there of white privilege isn't real because here's what happened to me. Of course, I also think that from what I understand, the author of that book has came out and said some really borderline racist comments, unsurprisingly, kind of a Trumpian outlook on life. That's that story. This story is not that. This story is not saying, hey, I struggle too, so why are these other people bitching and complaining?
It sounds about 6 or 8 months ago, I did a book on this show, and it was another comic artist, and I can't remember the name of the book right now, or even who the artist was, but it told his life story, very similar. Hispanic family, grew up in multi-generational home. His mom.
Oh, no, I borrowed that from you.
Yeah.
What was, I can't remember.
Anyways, it sounds very similar to that, so I may have to pick that book up.
Yeah, for sure. There's some parallels. The artwork in the book, it's very. If you've read March, you'll see something similar to this. It's got that kind of tonal style. Early Jeff Lemire, maybe. Lots of ink heavy washes. Very. This is not realism. This is comics. This is kind of standard.
So he didn't listen to his art teachers.
Well, no. So here's the thing. What his art teachers told him is like, no. learn realism first, and then once you learn realism, and I think if you talk to a lot of artists like Bill Sienkiewicz, they all learn how to draw. Like all of them can sit down and they can draw an apple on a plate, and it looks like an apple on a plate, like it's realism. But they have to learn those mechanics to really break it down to see what the bare essence
I
of
saw
those
Jim
things are.
Lee posted a picture from when he was like 16 years
Yeah.
old that he did. Did you see that?
I think so. I've
He
seen.
did
Yeah,
not learn realism before he learned comics.
not at
No,
at
he didn't.
16.
He's openly said that.
Yeah.
In fact, he didn't. He said he never even learned anatomy.
That's apparent too.
I've seen some pictures by Alex Ross too, though, where he does that same thing, and it's so. I mean, artists.
It's cool to see.
Yeah,
So
I love seeing how they develop his stuff. But yeah, so I really appreciated this book. I think it's
awesome.
It's a quick read. It took me like an hour and a half to read, and that was me reading it. So I'm staring at pages, longer than I need to sometimes. But it was good stuff. I really enjoyed it.
Fantastic.
Word.
So go checketh it out. Well, guys, how you guys feel?
Feeling like it's about lunchtime.
Stomach growling a little bit.
All I can think of now is Jim Lee's art. And why he can't draw triceps. It's just Jim Lee triceps. They look different when the arm's up.
This is Matt's day. This is all Matt's going to do today. Well, we got anything else we need to cover? Or are we about ready to land this plane?
I don't have anything else. You, Matt?
No, I don't think I have anything else to Jim Lee's triceps.
All right, so we're going to end this thing the way we always do, by looking forward. It's always nice, we assume a comet will not explode the universe like a head in a Craig Lance book.
Explode the universe like a head.
Just come busting through it.
If it's a good enough comic, it will explode a head and a universe.
And if not, they'll bring us back.
Yeah, you'll see. Well, Aerosmith will start playing, and we'll all be saved.
Oh,
that's what'll happen.
No.
So let's look forward to next week so that doesn't happen. I mean, we're going to do that by telling you all some books that we think are going to be worth your while to pick up. Just some suggestions, things that maybe we're excited for, we want you to go see, or we want to read, and we have no idea if they'll be good or not, but we're willing to take a chance on it. So why don't you guys start? Tell me what you're looking forward to next week.
So I'm looking forward to Ascender from Image Comics. This is actually number 15. This is the series by Jeff Lemire and Dustin Nguyen. So this book's been on pause late for quite a while now. So a new arc is starting up, titled The Star Seed. So I'm really looking forward to this series being back on the regular again.
Me too. I picked a book called Troggs from American Mythology. It's Rich Bonk is doing the entire book. In a prehistoric world, a lone warrior struggles to return a lost girl to her people, surrounded by enormous dinosaurs and bloodthirsty monsters. Nothing can go wrong with that scenario, right? They will discover if his strength and her faith are enough to overcome the horrifying demons that wait to devour them.
Cool.
The cover drew me in.
That sounds like a brain's going to explode.
It sounds like a book filled with violence, blood, swords.
Sweet.
I don't know what else you can want in a comic book. Monsters, dinosaurs. It's basically Khazar.
Ooh, nice. There's got to be. Well, if you're going to make this Khazar, there's got to be a talking saber-tooth tiger.
Maybe.
One can.
I haven't read the issue yet, Caleb. I'll let you know once I read.
That's true. That's true. All right, so next week there's a book coming out. It's another one-shot. I'm into one-shots lately, and I don't know why. It's just what I'm feeling. This comes out from my fine friends over at Fantagraphics. It's called Zigzag. So Zigzag #1, and it comes out of the brain of British artist Will Sweeney. And so it depicts the evolution of something called the Mind's Eye Trooper, which is a mechanical secret agent piloted by an imp spawned from an extraterrestrial fungus. So
Sounds like more brains exploding.
that's it.
Fungus.
Yeah, he's a fun guy. So
Interesting.
it's going to be a good time. The trooper must infiltrate an alternate dimension in which a brutal tyrant has terrorized the inhabitants of a dispensed psychoactive justice. Terrorize the inhabitants and dispense psychoactive justice. So this sounds like a mind trip. I'm down with it. The art looks really cool. It's kind of got this, I don't know, almost a mix of like a claymation look to it on the art. And that's just judging by the cover. I haven't seen the interiors, but I'm sold. I'll take a chance on this. It's a whopping $6.99. for a one shot. So buying into the whole thing. So why not? So Fantagraphics Books, y'all, they be doing it. So
They be doing it.
they do's
That's their motto.
and doing it well. It should be their motto. They should pay me for
We
that.
be doing it.
We be doing it. Fantagraphics.
All right. So, well, we hope you all have enjoyed this. We certainly have. Back together once again, sitting at the table, and not talking over the ether of the internet. I can actually look into the whites of my brother's eyes. It's nice. And disappoint Craig with my mistakes on Spider-Man and whatnot. So he's not going to talk to me for the rest of the week. But you can. You can talk to me for the rest of the week if you want to. And you know where you can do that at? You can do it at our Facebook group. We're Southern Fried Geekery at the just type it in the search bar right there. It'll pop up. You can join the group, answer a few questions. If you want to see what we're reading, oftentimes we will post little clips of panels, little vignettes, if you will, of things on the Instagram and the Twitters. We're at SFG Podcast on both of those. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, hit us up, southernfriedgeekery@gmail.com. And we'll answer them to the best of our abilities, which, look, to be fair, is not a whole lot sometimes. We try real hard.
Caleb believes at Spider-Man street level, so take your chances with the answers to our questions.
I maintain that in the roster of street level heroes, Spider-Man is at the pinnacle.
Okay.
Takes.
I'm twitching.
Lots of punching. So, all right. If nothing further, I think we about killed this cat in all the ways we can. So, go forth and love comics.
We be doing it.
I hate you so much. You're so typical with yourself.